Olá malta, sejam muito bem-vindos então a mais um vídeo, a mais uma React Weekend. Desta vez vamos estar a reagir a um vídeo de Resident Evil novamente, que eu fiquei impressionado com o feedback que vocês deram no último vídeo da React Weekend da semana passada sobre Resident Evil. Nunca esperei que vocês apoiassem assim tanto, mas no vídeo de hoje vamos estar a ver as explicações do Resident Evil dos vírus mais mortais. Então já sabem, se vocês gostam de Resident Evil e estão a acompanhar a Requiem todas as quintas-feiras, deixem o vosso like, subscrevam-se e ativem o sininho das notificações para não pararem de receber notificação de quando irá sair o próximo vídeo, pois em 2026 está praticamente a sair vídeos quase todos os dias. Posto isto, vamos avançar para o vídeo.
Resident Evil has unleashed biological nightmares that redefine survival horror for 30 years. Every outbreak, every mutation, every impossible transformation traces back to viruses that shouldn't exist in nature. That's why today, I'm breaking down the 8 deadliest viruses in Resident Evil and the horrifying science behind each one, starting with the infection that created...
Lembrando, em termos de Resident Evil, eu ainda só joguei o 7, que eu até trouxe aqui, e agora o Requiem. Ainda tenho que jogar o Village e todos os outros. Então, yeah.
Everything. The T-virus. The T-virus is supposed to create mindless zombies that shamble toward prey and bite, and that works perfectly fine for most infected, except certain subjects retain full consciousness and tactical intelligence for weeks after exposure, which makes zero biological sense. Dr. James Marcus created the T-virus in the 1970s by combining the progenitor virus with leech DNA. The result was a retrovirus that hijacks living cells through reverse transcription. The viral RNA translates into DNA, integrates into the host genome, and forces cells to replicate the virus. Within 6 to 12 hours of exposure, the virus spreads through the bloodstream to neural pathways. It causes massive necrosis and severe brain damage. Then it reanimates the corpse. The infected lose all reasoning and empathy, but retain movement and primal aggression. The Raccoon City outbreak on September 28, 1998, killed over 100,000 people in under 48 hours. The Arklay laboratory incidents between May and July 1998.
E essa cena do incidente Raccoon City em qual jogo? É no 2?
Produced the first documented Crimson Heads. Every single test subject in the Arklay facility died within 72 hours of T-virus exposure. But then you check the research files from the Epsilon strain. The VAC-T process, which stands for Vector Accelerated Cognition Transmission, doesn't just reanimate corpses, it enhances them. The Epsilon strain created what Umbrella called Crimson Heads. These weren't standard zombies. Security footage from the Spencer mansion shows infected coordinating ambush patterns. They open doors. They use basic tools. File report 2847 from July 1998 documents one subject who retained enough cognitive function to operate a keypad lock. That's not mindless reanimation. That's selective consciousness preservation. Players who examined Arklay laboratory records found something worse. Test subjects who received controlled T-virus doses showed unusual patterns. Some retained memories for 72 hours post-infection. Lab notes explicitly mention Subject 0214, who spoke coherently about his family 3 days after injection, right before final degradation. The research team noted he could recognize faces, respond to questions, and express fear. Then his higher brain functions collapsed. Here's what breaks the established science. The T-virus destroys the prefrontal cortex. That's the area responsible for reasoning, planning, and impulse control. But Crimson Heads demonstrate tactical thinking that requires an intact prefrontal cortex. Security recordings show them testing doors before attacking, retreating when outnumbered, and flanking prey from multiple angles. Those behaviors require neural pathways the virus is supposed to destroy. Dr. Marcus mentions this paradox exactly once in a classified memo dated June 12, 1978. Certain subjects demonstrate cognitive retention that contradicts viral mechanisms. Further study required. When you search for that further study in the files, you find nothing. Umbrella never explained how some infected retain intelligence while others become mindless corpses. That contradiction defined bioweapon research for the next 30 years. Every virus that came after the T-virus tried to solve the same problem. How do you create controlled mutations without destroying the host's intelligence? But if selective consciousness seems impossible, wait until you learn about the virus that forces infinite evolution beyond any biological limits. The G virus. The G virus was designed to create perfect biological evolution with unlimited potential, and it succeeded brilliantly, except every single host mutated into something that kept evolving beyond any biological limits.
Ou seja, os Nemesis.
William Birkin isolated the G virus in 1988 from Lisa Trevor's mutated cells in the Arklay laboratory. Lisa had survived every virus Umbrella injected into her body for 21 years. The progenitor virus, type A, type B, and the experimental NE alpha parasite. Each strain alone had a 100% fatality rate. She integrated all of them. Birkin discovered her body wasn't just surviving viral infection, it was absorbing incompatible genetic code and using it to enhance itself. He extracted that ability and weaponized it. The result was the Golgotha virus, designed for continuous, unlimited mutation. On September 20th, 1998, Umbrella Security Service troops shot Birkin to steal his research. He injected himself with G-virus and transformed. That single injection triggered the outbreak that destroyed Raccoon City 6 days later. But then you track what happened to Birkin after injection. The virus didn't just mutate him once, it forced perpetual evolution. Security footage shows Birkin mutating through 5 distinct forms in under 6 hours. Each transformation was more extreme than the last. Form 1 resembled a hulking humanoid with exposed muscle tissue. Form 2 developed a massive blade arm and enhanced regenerative abilities. Form 3 sprouted eyes across his torso. Form 4 became a quadrupedal nightmare. Form 5 was a barely recognizable mass of teeth, tentacles, and pulsating organs. Lab reports state his cellular structure was rewriting itself every 40 minutes. Sherry Birkin, William's daughter, was infected with a G-virus embryo on September 29, 1998. The embryo was surgically removed within hours. She survived. But here's what the files don't advertise. Her blood retained active G cells for over a decade. In 2009, the US government extracted those cells and used them to create the C virus. That means G-virus cells remained viable and active in her bloodstream for 11 years without additional exposure. Research notes from the Nest laboratory explicitly state that G-virus embryos can be implanted in non-compatible hosts through chest bursting. If the host body rejects the embryo doesn't die. It births itself, seeks a new host, and tries again. File report 5512 describes this as autonomous reproductive capability independent of original host viability. That's not a virus. That's a self-aware biological weapon that reproduces and evolves without human intervention. The G-virus proves something Umbrella spent decades trying to achieve. You can create life that improves itself infinitely. The problem is, you can never control what it becomes. But if infinite mutation seems terrifying, wait until you learn about the parasite that hijacks nervous systems through psychic signals, Las Plagas. Las Plagas isn't a virus at all, and that would be fine, except it achieves hive mind control capabilities across entire populations that no biological organism should be capable of. The Plagas parasite was discovered beneath Salazar Castle in rural Spain by Los Iluminados cult leader Osman Sadler in 2003. The parasites had been dormant in cave systems for centuries. After the first Castellan Salazar sealed them away, Sadler excavated the site and began breeding programs to create weaponized strains. The parasite exists in 3 forms. Egg form can be ingested. Spore form spreads through airborne contact. Adult form wraps directly around the host's spinal cord and integrates with the central nervous system. Unlike viral infection, Plagas doesn't kill the host. It hijacks complete motor control while leaving cognitive function intact. Infected subjects, called ganados, can speak, use firearms, coordinate tactical operations, and follow complex orders. Leon S. Kennedy encountered Type 1 Plagas during his mission to rescue Ashley Graham in 2004. He documented infected villagers setting traps, operating heavy machinery, and communicating through high-frequency signals. But then you examine how the parasite actually controls hosts across distances. The files describe it as psychic communication, not metaphorically, literally. Every Plagas-infected individual connects to a biological network controlled by whoever holds the dominant strain. Sadler possessed the dominant plagas, which meant he could command every infected person in the region simultaneously. Research notes from Tricell Corporation describe the communication method as high-frequency neural broadcasting beyond known biological mechanisms. The parasites don't use pheromones or chemical signals. They transmit commands directly between nervous systems. The cross-species compatibility makes this worse. Type 2 and Type 3 plagas variants, developed by Tricell, successfully infected humans, dogs, bats, insects, and reptiles. Every species remained controllable through the same hive mind network. File report 8834 documents infected animals responding to human hosts' mental commands with zero training period. When Leon killed Sadler on November 17, 2004, every single infected individual in the castle collapsed simultaneously. Security footage recovered later shows Ganados dropping mid-action the exact second Sadler died. That's not just neural hijacking. That's instantaneous network-wide consciousness termination across a 5-kilometer radius. Here's the part that breaks known neuroscience. Type 2 and Type 3. Plagas can survive host death and actively seek new bodies. The Las Plagas removal report from 2005 explicitly states that parasites extracted from deceased hosts remained mobile and attempted to infect nearby personnel. These organisms demonstrated survival instinct and target recognition independent of any nervous system. This proves parasitic intelligence exists outside host consciousness. Las Plagas aren't just controlling bodies, they're thinking for themselves. But if psychic parasites seem impossible, wait until you learn about the virus designed to judge humanity and exterminate 99% of it in under 60 seconds, the Ouroboros virus. Albert Wesker created Ouroboros to evolve humanity into gods with superhuman abilities, and the virus worked perfectly, except 99% of all hosts dissolve into black tentacled masses in under 60 seconds. Wesker developed Ouroboros in 2006 with Tricell Corporation using the progenitor virus discovered in Ndapaya ruins in West Africa. The virus was designed as biological judgment. Compatible hosts would undergo complete genetic enhancement, gaining incredible strength, superhuman speed, and regenerative immortality. Incompatible hosts would be eliminated instantly. Wesker used Jill Valentine's unique T-virus antibodies as a stabilizing agent after discovering her blood contained proteins that prevented rejection. His plan was simple: release Ouroboros globally via missile dispersal from Tricell facilities. The worthy would ascend, the unworthy would die. He called it forced evolution. Chris Redfield and Sheva Alomar stopped the launch on March 8, 2009 at the Kijuju Autonomous Zone. They killed Wesker by overdosing him with Ouroboros serum and destroying him with dual rocket launchers. But then you examine what Ouroboros actually does to incompatible hosts. The transformation isn't gradual, it's instantaneous and irreversible. Incompatible subjects transform within 45 seconds of injection. Their cells are overrun by black tendril-like structures that consume organic tissue from the inside out. The body dissolves into a shapeless parasitic mass controlled by bright orange weak point cores. These cores function as both central nervous system and the creature's only vulnerability. Research notes from the Tricell facility describe the process as complete cellular replacement with zero incubation period. Wesker himself demonstrated what compatibility looks like. After injecting the prototype virus on July 23, 1998, his cellular structure completely rewrote itself in 6 hours. His strength increased by 200%. His speed allowed him to dodge bullets after they left the barrel. His regeneration healed third-degree burns in under 30 seconds. File report 9271 states his aging process stopped entirely at a cellular level. The compatibility rate for Ouroboros was documented at 0.0013%. That's 13 people per million. Wesker's global dispersal plan would have infected approximately 6.7 billion people. The math is simple. 629,129,000 deaths within the first hour.
São... Ainda é muito cedo para estarem a falar de contas e eu não estou a entender.
That's not evolution. That's extinction with survivors. Here's what makes this genuinely horrifying. Wesker knew the numbers. The Tricell research files explicitly show projected casualty rates before the planned launch. He saw 9.9987% lethality and called it acceptable losses. His vision of a superior humanity required killing literally everyone else first. This wasn't bioterrorism. This was genocide disguised as philosophy. But if Wesker's judgment virus seems extreme, wait until you learn about the virus that requires 15 years of frozen sleep before it grants godlike power. The T. Veronica virus. T. Veronica was supposed to fix the T virus's intelligence problem by using ant queen DNA instead of leech genetics, and it worked perfectly, but only if you stay frozen in cryogenic sleep for 15 years first. Alexia Ashford created T. Veronica in 1981 at age 10 as a rival to the T virus. She was the artificial daughter of Edward Ashford, one of Umbrella's original founders. The formula combined progenitor virus with ant queen DNA and plant DNA. She removed the leech genetics that made T virus hosts mindless and brain dead. The ant queen DNA was supposed to create controlled bioweapons with hive mind command structures like ant colonies, intelligence plus obedience. The plant DNA provided enhanced cellular regeneration. On December 27, 1983, Alexia injected herself with T. Veronica and entered cryogenic suspension in the Antarctic facility. She remained frozen for exactly 15 years. When she emerged in 1998 during Code Veronica, she possessed fire manipulation abilities, complete consciousness, and queen-level command over other infected subjects. But then you check what happens to hosts who don't get 15 years of incubation. They lose everything instantly. Steve Burnside was infected with T. Veronica on December 28, 1998, by Alexia herself. He transformed within minutes. His body mutated into an axe-wielding monster with zero cognitive control. He attacked Claire Redfield on pure instinct. For exactly 47 seconds, his consciousness returned. He recognized Claire, spoke her name, and died fighting the mutation. Then the virus consumed him completely. The research files from the Antarctic facility explain the 15-year requirement. T. Veronica doesn't adapt to the host. The host must adapt to T. Veronica. The cryogenic period allows viral DNA to integrate cell by cell without triggering immune response. The process is so slow that the body accepts the foreign genetic code as its own. Without cryo-incubation, the immune system fights the virus fights back, and the host loses all higher brain function during the battle. Alexia infected herself at age 10 and spent ages 11 through 25 frozen in a tube. She consciously chose to sacrifice her.
Mas dos 11 aos 25 são 14 anos, não são 15.
Entire childhood for power. The autopsy files note she physically aged during cryosleep despite suspended metabolism, suggesting the virus was actively rewriting her biology for 15 consecutive years. That's not a treatment period. That's a metamorphosis. T. Veronica proved you can create intelligent bioweapons that retain full consciousness and gain supernatural abilities. The trade-off is 15 years per subject, which makes mass production impossible. But if waiting 15 years for mutation seems impractical, wait until you learn about the virus the US government created, using a 21-year-old woman's blood without her consent, the C virus. The C virus is a combination of G virus, T. Veronica, and T. Abyss genetics, and that sounds like a terrorist nightmare, except it was deliberately created and funded by the United States government. Derek C. Simmons and the secretive organization called The Family developed the C virus around 2009 using classified government resources. The formula required G cells extracted directly from Sherry Birkin's bloodstream. Remember, she was infected with a G virus embryo in 1998 and retained active G cells for over a decade. They combined those regenerative properties with T. Veronica's intelligence retention and T. Abyss adaptability for aquatic environments. The result was a virus designed for controlled bioterrorism with plausible deniability. It could be deployed as a gas, spread instantly through populations, and create intelligent infected soldiers called Javo who followed tactical orders. Major C virus outbreaks devastated Edonia in 2012 and Lanshan, China on June 29, 2013. Over 70,000 confirmed deaths in China alone. The virus wasn't stolen from a rogue corporation. It was authorized, funded, and weaponized by government officials. But then you check how the US government obtained those G cells from Sherry. She wasn't a volunteer, she was a prisoner. Sherry Birkin was placed under protective custody by the US government immediately after the Raccoon City incident in 1998. She was 12 years old. The custody lasted 11 years. During that time, government scientists regularly extracted blood samples to study her G-virus antibodies. File Report 44209 from 2005 explicitly documents ongoing cellular harvesting for weapons development purposes. She wasn't being protected. She was being used as a biological resource. The C-virus infection process is instant. Gaseous dispersal means 0 incubation period. Subjects transform within 30 seconds of exposure. The infected become Javo, intelligent hosts who retain combat training, use firearms, and coordinate military-level tactics. When a Javo sustains critical damage, they enter a chrysalis state and emerge as complete bioweapons. The mutation type depends on host genetics, creating dozens of variants from single exposure. Research notes from The Family describe C-virus deployment as strategically superior to nuclear options with reduced infrastructure damage. They saw civilian casualties as acceptable collateral in geopolitical conflicts. The virus was designed for deniability, release it in enemy territory, blame it on terrorists, and watch populations collapse. Sherry spent her childhood as a government test subject, so officials could build better biological weapons than Umbrella ever created. That's not protection. That's exploitation with paperwork. But if government-sanctioned bioweapons seem corrupt, wait until you learn about the fungal organism that stores 4 centuries of human consciousness in an underground network. The mold. The mold isn't a virus at all. It's a fungal superorganism with 400 years of stored human memories. And that's not speculation or fan theory. That's literally what Resident Evil Village research files state. The mold was discovered in Eastern Europe as a massive underground root system called the megamycete. The organism stores consciousness and memories of everything it infects over centuries. It creates molded creatures, grants regenerative abilities that border on immortality, and enables reality warping powers in compatible hosts. The Connections bioweapon organization engineered Eveline in the early 2010s using mold as her biological foundation. She was designed as a living weapon with psychic manipulation capabilities. Ethan Winters encountered the mold during the Baker family incident on October 10, 2017 in Dulvey, Louisiana. Jack Baker killed Ethan within 15 minutes of arrival. Ethan died. What happened next proves the mold doesn't just infect hosts, it replaces them entirely while maintaining perfect consciousness. But then you track Ethan's timeline after that initial death. He functioned normally for 3 years without realizing he was already dead. Ethan's body was reanimated by the mold after Jack Baker killed him. Every action he took from that point forward was a mold construct operating on his stored memories. He rescued Mia. He escaped Louisiana. He lived with his wife for 3 years. He had a daughter. Rose was born in 2020 to 2 mold-infected parents, making her biologically a fungal hybrid with human consciousness. Ethan didn't discover the truth until February 9th, 2021 in Castle Dimitrescu when the Duke told him directly. The megamycete root system stores 4 centuries of memories from entire villages in Eastern Europe. Miranda, the village priestess, accessed those memories and used them to resurrect her dead daughter. The resurrection failed, because memories aren't consciousness, but the attempt worked biologically. Files from Heisenberg's factory described the megamycete as organic data storage with consciousness preservation capabilities beyond current technological understanding. Eveline demonstrated abilities that break known science. She created realistic hallucinations that multiple people experienced simultaneously. She controlled minds across the entire Baker estate. She aged rapidly through conscious thought alone, going from apparent age 10 to apparent age 70 in under 3 years. Here's what the research notes won't say directly. If the mold can perfectly replicate human consciousness using stored memories, then Ethan Winters wasn't human for 3 years. He was a sentient fungus that believed it was Ethan. His daughter Rose is biologically the child of 2 fungal constructs. That means she's technically not human either. This crosses from bioweapon into existential horror. If consciousness can be copied and stored in fungal networks, what actually defines being alive? But if fungal consciousness seems impossible, wait until you learn about the original virus that started everything and why it shouldn't exist in nature. The progenitor virus. Every virus in Resident Evil traces back to progenitor, and we know it was discovered in Africa in the 1960s from rare flowers, except those flowers shouldn't exist in nature, and the ancient civilization that cultivated them understood viral genetics before modern science existed. Oswell Spencer, James Marcus, and Edward Ashford discovered the progenitor virus in the Ndapaya ruins of West Africa during an expedition in 1966. The virus came from flowers called the stairway of the sun that grew exclusively in one specific cave system. Edward Ashford wanted to use it to heal disabilities and regenerate damaged tissue. James Marcus saw potential for forced evolution research. Oswell Spencer wanted biological weapons and immortality. They founded Umbrella Corporation in 1968 to weaponize their discovery. Progenitor became the genetic foundation for every subsequent virus. The T virus, G virus, T Veronica, Ouroboros, and every outbreak across 30 years of Resident Evil history. The flowers contain mutagenic properties that either enhance human DNA into superhuman capabilities or destroy it completely. There's no middle ground, but then you examine the Endopia ruins themselves. The murals depict genetic manipulation techniques that didn't exist until the 21st century. The Endopia people weren't just growing flowers, they were cultivating them deliberately. Ancient stone carvings show detailed biological processes, cell division, genetic integration, viral replication cycles. Spencer's expedition notes from 1966 describe the murals as impossibly advanced for a pre-industrial civilization. The Endopia had been using progenitor in rituals for centuries before Spencer arrived. They understood what the flowers did. They knew the flowers caused mutations. They built an entire culture around controlled viral enhancement. Files recovered from Tricell facilities in 2009 reveal something worse. Analysis of the stairway of the sunflowers shows genetic markers that don't match any naturally occurring plant species on Earth. The flower's DNA contains sequences that appear artificially designed. Laboratory reports explicitly state genetic structure suggests engineered origin rather than natural evolution. Spencer believed progenitor could grant godhood. He spent 40 years trying to achieve it. He created dozens of viruses. He killed millions of people. He never succeeded. But the Endopia ruins suggest some...
Mas criou a cura. Não conseguiu o que queria, mas o Spencer conseguiu criar a Elpis.
One did succeed thousands of years ago. Here's what the research files imply but never confirm directly. If progenitor was engineered by an ancient civilization, then every virus, every outbreak, every death in Resident Evil traces back to a prehistoric bioweapon. That means humanity has been playing with something we didn't create and don't understand. The T-virus killed Raccoon City. The G-virus destroyed William Birkin. Las Plagas created hive mind armies. Ouroboros almost exterminated humanity. Every single catastrophe started because 3 men found flowers in a cave that shouldn't exist. But these aren't isolated incidents. Every single one of these viruses shares something deeper, something that changes everything we thought we knew about bioweapons and the true purpose behind Umbrella Corporation. If you enjoyed this video and want to see the complete Umbrella Corporation conspiracy explained, click the video on screen now.
Então é isso, malta. Espero muito que vocês tenham gostado deste vídeo. Eu estou ansioso para jogar os restantes Resident Evil. Apesar de agora ter que platinar o Resident Evil 7 antes de ir para qualquer outro, porque eu ainda não o terminei. Ainda só estou nem a metade, acho eu, que se eu vir aqui procurar, eu digo-vos já, tenho 25 de 58. É que nem sequer é de 25 de 50, não é 25 de 58. Então primeiro terminá-lo e depois vamos começar com os iniciais, por ordem, finalmente, né? Então é isso, espero muito que vocês tenham gostado. Não se esqueçam, se não deram no início, deixem agora no fim o vosso like se gostaram do vídeo ou se gostam de Resident Evil no geral. Subscrevam-se e ativem o sininho das notificações para não pararem de receber notificação de quando irá sair o próximo vídeo, pois em 2026 está a sair vídeos praticamente quase todos os dias. Então é isso tudo, malta, abraços e até amanhã.